Commissioner Lovinggood,
Here.
Commissioner Mosier,
Here.
Commissioner Richardson,
Here.
Commissioner Jinks,
Here.
Commissioner Stutz.
Here.
All right. Welcome all of our visitors tonight. We don't have anyone present to make public comments, so we're going to jump right into the workshop discussion. And what discussion we have this evening, we have a wonderful announcement from Sweetwater Fire Department Chief John Anderson.
Good afternoon.
Mayor, Board of Commissioners, I want to talk to you a little bit about our ISO tonight, tell you where we're at. For those of you that don't know, ISO audits fire departments approximately every 4 years to determine the abilities and the readiness of fire departments to help insurance companies come up with what you pay for your homeowner's insurance or your building insurance businesses. 2015 is when I started this lovely journey. We were a 5 at the time. We went to a 4 that year with 64.15 points. 2019 is when we had our next audit. It stayed a 4, but barely. We got a score of 60.25, so that means we were 0.26 points from going back to a 5. Due to our aging equipment and the growth in our city, that's just where we ended up. When Alan and I took over the department, Alan said he wanted to bring the fire department into the 21st century, and of course I agreed. I felt the same way, but I wanted to add that I wanted to lower the ISO. Now Alan can tell you his first 3 months into it, we had an ISO. And a lot of the information I was getting and what we were trying to do from ISO was coming from the guy that did the audits for ISO, and he would tell us something different every year. So at that time, I decided to do my homework and learn their game. I told the men what was coming and what the plan was, and to my surprise, they were very little resistance. It's more work on them. It's a lot more work on them. They also wanted the best department possible, just like us. So with Alan on board and the men on board, we went to work, and we got good results. Pass those down. We had our audit in March of this year. We've achieved what only 8% of departments in the state and only 10% in the whole country have accomplished. We have a solid 3 with good. And that is a 17-point increase, guys, when 5 and 6 points in ISO world is a lot, and we got 17 points. That's saying a lot. And if it wasn't for all of these guys sitting right back here, we wouldn't have done any of that. Every one of them stepped up and did their part without a whole lot of complaining, and it is a lot more work on everybody. So guys, I want y'all to stand up. I want to thank the commission for giving us what we needed, having faith in us, and giving us what we needed to get to this point. It's been a long haul for me. It's been a long haul for these guys back here. It's took years to do it, and we do greatly appreciate y'all giving us what we need to get there. Anybody got any questions?
John, thank you so much. Guys, listen, that's just another reason why Sweetwater is one of the best places to live. You're gonna keep us safe, keep us in line, and John, you and your guys, just bravo to that. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of your men, and just keep up the good work, fellas.
Thank you.
And fellas, if you all want to go ahead and leave.
don't have to.
You don't have to. We'd love for you to stay, but I understand.
Thank you, guys.
You may have babies.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all.
Good job, man.
Gosh, that's such great news. Gives me goosebumps. Okay, now we're gonna have our monthly update from Jessica Morgan.
Thanks, Mayor. Okay, so a lot of stuff going on in July. July's been a very busy month. We've had 3 events this month in addition to trying to close out year end. One of the other things that's happened this month is we're having some turnover in our department head positions, which is always a major change. Sean Vestal has decided to go back to the fire department. I noticed that was after they got the 3 rating. Sean, was that? Okay. Okay. So you didn't have to go through the rating process yet. But we appreciate all he's done as he's been Parks Director. For this last year, it was not a position he really was angling for. It kind of fell in his lap, and he's decided his real love is back in the fire department. So he'll be moving back to the fire department, which leaves our Parks position open. We are not going to advertise this publicly just yet because we do have interest within City Hall from existing employees. So right now, Alan, we have had this posted in all departments so that any existing employee has a chance to apply for this position. We've had 5 applicants, and Alan's going to begin the interview process on that sometime this week. So we'll let you know how that goes. Now, as always, department head appointments are made by this full board. So at some point, Alan will come back to you all with a recommendation, and you'll, as a full board, you'll be voting to appoint a Parks Director. We also have some pending litigation I wanted to go through. John Cleveland is here, and I wanted to let him kind of walk through the latest update on the TMG tax sale process, whatever he feels comfortable saying publicly at this point.
The last hearing that we had was 2 and 3 months ago, at which time the chancellor wondered why all of this had taken so long and commented that she would probably have its decision within a week or 2. And then 3 months later, we just heard last week that she has granted, in part, but the important parts, granted our motion for judgment on the pleadings, which means that she has essentially ordered the tax sale. But to get there, she appointed Teresa Choate, the clerk and master, as special master to conduct a hearing or a meeting to determine what the amount of the delinquent taxes are.
For both city and county.
City and county.
Is that normal?
Yeah, that's the way it, I started to say that's the way it always happens, but the truth is that there's almost never, I mean, like I've never heard of one before, a taxpayer who demands every step of the process, every bit along the way. When it comes time for somebody's taxes to be, property to be sold for delinquent taxes, the taxpayer and everybody else knows how much the taxes are. But, so, I had worked with the clerk and master and I turned to say our recorder. Not our recorder now, but our recorder then. As well as the clerk and master and Marcia, the trustee, to make sure we knew just exactly what it is. And I submitted that to the attorney for Swan Freed as soon as the chancellor said we were ready for our meeting, and I proposed a stipulation as to how much they are, which would have gotten us past that special master stage. And I just now, within the last half hour, got a message back that she won't agree to anything. So, Whereas I thought we might have been ready to have a sale in a couple of months, then we'll be having a hearing before the special master, and she'll have to file a report with the chancellor, and the chancellor will have to have a hearing to decide whether or not she accepts and approves the report or orders changes to it. And of course, Swan Freed will no doubt demand that she have a full hearing at that time. And so I'm just very disappointed with her attorney. I don't know why. It's her 9th or 10th attorney that she's had in the last 14 years that we've been doing this. I don't know why. I thought he might have better luck advising his client than any of the others have. So I really don't have any idea when we might get around to having a hearing. I mean, not a hearing, but the actual sale. I can tell you 5 or 6 months, but I really don't have confidence in any part of this going as fast or as slow as it should.
So let me ask this. So the judge has no, so the judge basically has no say-so?
Well, there's a statutory process, and she's
Okay.
entitled to, each
Okay.
part of the process, and
Okay.
while
I just don't
any
know what part
normally
of the
intelligent
process we're in.
person might be concerned that they might be in the bad graces of the fact finder at some point, that's not her. So it's just slogging through the process.
I know it's a ridiculous question, but is this the last process?
Well, there's the two. Well, there's 3 parts really. There'll be the clerk and master meeting and her report. There'll be the hearing before the chancellor, and then there'll be the sale.
So the first two meetings, is there an appeal process after those two?
There's not formally any appeal available anytime between now and the sale. However, her attorney could file a notice of appeal at any time, and the Court of Appeals would say that it's what would be called an interlocutory appeal. And the Court of Appeals would say that it's not a final judgment, so they'd send it back, but there's nothing to keep her lawyer from filing appeal at any time and just adding that much time to it.
All right. Sam, I thought your question was intelligent. This might be a silly question. Tell me again about, what was it, eminent domain?
Do what?
When we just take the land? Can you tell me about that
Eminent
again?
domain.
We could do that anytime we want to.
Because
Anytime we
isn't-
want to buy it.
The
I
longer
mean,
we
eminent
take it, the
domain
more.
means we would be buying, the city would be buying the property at the current fair market value. Which my best guess would probably be 2.4 million or somewhere north of there.
Which we have to deposit at the time we say we're gonna take it,
We have to deposit, yes,
if we do eminent domain.
yes. We
Yeah,
have to
right, check.
we have to deposit then, and then she, as the property owner, would contest the value and demand that we have a jury trial to determine what it's really worth. And add 3 years.
What does she owe the city?
Well,
Almost
right,
3.
right now with the interest and penalties and attorney's fees and things that are already determined, which would increase somewhat between now and then, but not a lot, it's about $850,000,
For city and county, right?
city and county.
And the city's
Both.
portion of that is just a
Yeah.
little under 300,000. Anything else on the, I know y'all don't want to hear anything else about TMG because there's no good answer to this. And if I were a little old lady that didn't pay my taxes for 2 years, I would already been, my house would have been sold on the courthouse steps. But this is what we're in with TMG. Okay.
We do earn interest on it at 18% per annum. The tiniest bit of good news.
So when I get ready to retire in 10 years, please spend that on my retirement party, everybody. But we did have 2 other lawsuits filed in the last few months since we did the last quarterly update. One is considered a streets lawsuit. This is concerning the fatality at the railroad. Thank goodness we have never done any markings or anything for the railroad. That is the railroad's responsibility, and we allow them to do that. So we are hopeful that we'll be dismissed off that lawsuit because it is not our liability or our responsibility to maintain those crossings. It's the railroad's responsibility. We do have counsel for that. It's Watson, Roach, and Louderback. They were retained by PEP Partners for us. Also, the second lawsuit filed also retained PEP Partners. We heard from the attorney on that today. This one was just served week before last, I think, within the last
They
2 weeks.
just filed, and we
Yeah.
haven't been served as far as I know.
That's true. Technically, I've not been served yet, but so we went ahead and turned that into PEP Partner. This one is a police lawsuit. We've been dispatched multiple times to a particular residence that's in a dispute with their neighbor. They are basically suing, saying we shouldn't have been able to respond or arrest them in any way. So that's what that one is. Again, we have counsel on both of those. We'll be meeting with counsel. And we'll see where they go. But I did want to make you aware that 2 have been filed, and those are the only 2 the city have open right now.
And one other, what's the status of our duck hunter case?
The duck hunter's case is set for a hearing on the 10th, I believe. I believe that's the right date of September. We have filed a request for admissions that legally they have to respond to. They have to either admit or deny each of the statements of fact that I have requested. And if they don't do that within 30 days, it's been about 10 days since I submitted those. If they don't respond within 30 days, then the court deems that they are admitted, and the first, there are not very many, there's I think it's 9 or 10, and all but the last one concerns, the first 2 just concern the facts that there's an ordinance and they discharged firearms within the city limits while hunting. The next, all of the rest of them just are statements of the law that I don't know how they can deny them or explain them even. And of course, the last one is that our ordinance is in fact enforceable. Well, they won't admit all of those, and even if they admit all of them except the last one, they won't admit that our ordinance is enforceable because that's their lawsuit. We were supposed to have a hearing on it this month, but as it happened, my wife was in the hospital and I had to ask for a continuance. And in asking for a continuance, the duck hunter's attorney commented that he needed to he had witnesses that he had to release to let them know that we wouldn't be having it. It's the first I'd heard of him intending to call any witnesses, so it worked out pretty well because I also filed a number of interrogatories, which were among those were who are his witnesses and what have they got to say. So everybody he calls and everything that they want to say will be irrelevant, as would be the case if we call any witnesses, because this is purely a question of law. So that's sort of where we are with that.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna move on. Year end, obviously that's going on right now. We plan to have the books closed. We've got a date penciled in on the calendar that me and Sonia are shooting for. We're working diligently to get the year end closed out. We should have a full report for you all. Year-to-date expenditures, year-to-date revenues, what we took, if anything, from fund balance, in the August workshop. So that's when we should have all those numbers finalized and ready to you. In your packet is an approval from the state of Tennessee for our budget that we passed in June. They did approve that. They had one comment that they wanted us to stay under budget on certain line items. What that's pertaining to is the auditors made an adjusted journal entry after we had already closed the books to book interest in the capital debt fund. And because of that movement from one department to another for that interest, it caused us to go over the line in capital debt. So in the future, I will just make a bigger amendment in capital debt in case there's ever interest that's accrued after the fact or added after we've already closed the books to make sure that doesn't happen in the future. It was less than $500 worth of interest, and our auditors said they wouldn't even have reported it as a finding, but now knowing that the state is going to be looking for that, they're going to make sure that doesn't affect us in the future too. Moody's rating process. We have been going through a Moody's re-rating the last few weeks. Moody's is the credit rating agency. The city of Sweetwater is already rated by Moody's. We are retaining the same rating, which is AA3. That's an excellent credit rating for a city our size. It's an excellent credit rating for any city. This is the same credit rating that Chicago and Sacramento, California have. That's the credit rating that the city of Sweetwater, Tennessee has. Most cities our size are not credit rated. We got credit rated several years ago when the utility board was issuing debt because it was going to help them get a better credit rating.
So what is that?
Ours is AA3, which is considered a prime investment grade rating. That defines us as stable and reliable for lenders. We are safe credit risk. We have strong financial management. It should have high investor confidence and be a low risk financing option. So as we look towards the community center project and borrowing debt again, we get to rest on that AA3 rating, which is very important. We're also credit rated by S&P, Standard & Poor's. We don't have a credit rating from Fitch, but the two that most cities go through are Moody's and Standard & Poor's. Our Standard & Poor rating is A+. This is the fourth highest credit rating that Moody's will assign. So like the state of Tennessee is a AAA bond rating. That's the highest. And then it goes A1, A2, and A3. So we're fourth highest. I do have the listing of the Moody's rating scale. If anybody wants to look at that, you can pass that down just to kind of see where we fall. But this is I consider it a real accomplishment. Some of the things that have helped us keep this rate is that we have fairly low long-term debt ratio. Our revenues have increased, our fund balance has increased, our net pension liability has decreased. And that's both the city and the utilities working on decreasing that net pension liability. You can kind of look in the Moody's packet that I gave you in your packet. It's got a kind of a breakdown of where we are. If you'll look in that final column, it's giving you the median average for other people who are rated or other organizations who are rated AA3. So that kind of shows you where we are. One of the things that would be better, that we could do better, is residential income limits. So it's gone up. It's gone up steadily over the last 3 or 4 years. But one of the things that holds us back as a city is the fact that the people who live here they're not high income earners. So obviously there's things that the city can do to kind of help that. Jobs, economic development, those kind of things are important. But that's always been one of the things that we have a high poverty rate. So that's been one of the things that kind of affected the credit rating. Any question on that Moody's rating process? Not like you. Okay. Grants and monitoring. So in the 20 years I've been here, I've had 4 grants monitored until this year. And on Eddie's grant alone, we've had 4 grant monitorings on that one grant. So now, it was a $1.6 million grant. We got one of the biggest grants that the state of Tennessee awarded to any police department. That grant is closed. We are done. We finished our final monitoring. We had no findings. She actually emailed back to say she appreciated what a great job we did with that. So kudos to the police department for all their work and making that a good grant project. And we still have one more monitoring in August on the ECD grant we got for Main Street, which is a grant currently still in progress. They do check everything from what we've already spent money on to what the plans are for it. Have we filed our monthly reports that we're supposed to file? Do we have copies of the invoices and all email correspondence? So a lot of it is checking our files. So the good thing about having a grant monitored midway through is that you know you're on the right path, and by the time you get to the end of it, it's a lot easier when you get monitored halfway through. But if my guess is the state of Tennessee is hiring more people specifically to monitor grants, which means that the grant processes are going to take longer. It's going to take more time and more skill set and more record keeping to keep all those things floating. So I'm just asking you all to keep that in mind as we apply for grants going forward. That monitoring process is so much more intense than it was even just a couple of years ago. So policy review. Been really looking forward to this one. So I don't know if y'all heard, but we had a comptroller investigation last year over the last 9 or 10 years. Yeah. So I have met multiple times with MTAS, MTAS's legal counsel, MTAS's financial advisors, and MTAS's management consultant. All of them have contributed to this policy, these policies. Some of the items in your packet that we will be passing in the August meeting on first reading, basically to meet all of the criteria and recommendations that the comptroller's office made in that report. And after our meetings with MTAS, what we've come up with is we need to pass 2 ordinances and adopt an internal control manual. We already have an internal control manual, but there'll be an updated one. The 2 major changes in the internal control manual, which is on the August meeting for review, and I sent you all an email with that attached to it. The first one is purchases over $10,000 will require purchase orders from now on. We can do that internally without having to make software changes or anything, so that's why I set the limit at $10,000. It is something that probably almost every check run will have some purchase order for it, but it's not something that's so cumbersome that it's easily abused or makes us have to hire an extra person in the office. The other major change to that is we cannot let organizations borrow city assets. So we lend our tables to United Way for their golf tournament, and we lend the sound system to businesses if they have a fashion show, and we let the churches use the inflatables. All of that has to stop. From this point forward, only the city, our schools, our utilities, our Main Street program, only the stuff that we actually operate can use city assets. So you may get some pushback from that as commissioners about, well, my church used to use the inflatables that the city got, once a year we signed a waiver and they let us use those. We can't do that anymore. That is one of the changes inside that internal control manual, and the reason is it falls under safeguarding city assets. So that's one of the things that's changing. On the 2 ordinances in your packet, one of them pertains to subscriptions. For some reason they were really stuck on the fact that we had Adobe subscriptions and Microsoft Office subscriptions, which I'm pretty sure everybody who's ever worked in an office has those subscriptions, but they wanted us to have a contact person that was going to audit those as they came up for renewal every year to make sure that there was still a human being using that subscription, which is a good thing to check on, and that we actually needed and authorized that subscription. So from this point forward, Landon Purdy will be auditing those every time they come up for renewal and making sure that that Adobe software is actually being used, or that we still have that computer or that employee still here, or whatever the case may be on that. And then the other portion of that ordinance is subscriptions and what was the other one, Sonia? Sales tax. We had a couple of invoices where maybe we bought something online or we had gone out of town to purchase something and they did not apply our sales tax exempt certificate. We always try and follow back up with that and get them to remove sales tax since we are tax exempt. But that just kind of reiterates that we're always supposed to be tax exempt with everyone. So that's another change for that one. So that is the one ordinance. The other ordinance is specifically about food policy. Since that's what so much of that investigation circled around, we are adopting a specific non-travel food policy. So our travel policy already has rates and stuff for what we do when we're traveling or what's allowed by that policy. This is for when we have this meeting tonight that's going to take hours and we got sandwiches from Ingalls. We now have to do a sign-in sheet, which Sonia's going to keep track of and make sure that everybody that's here that eats one of those sandwiches, their name is on that sheet. And that they know.
Sign it. We just have to have your name on there.
Yes, we just have to list your name on there. That is a change.
I've already listed. Thank you.
All the things that we've ever authorized food purchases for are allowable, and this policy is basically saying that. So that's what the second policy deals with. And there's specific reasons you can celebrate employees. It's employee morale, it's training, it's long meetings, it's lunch meetings. All of those things are authorized. So really, the purpose of buying the food is not going to be any different than how we've always implemented it. We just now have a policy in writing saying that. So that's what the other ordinance is. Is there any questions about any of those three things, the internal control manual or either of the two ordinances? All three of them will be on the meeting in August. It'll be first reading on the ordinances, but for the internal control manual, it's only one adoption, so it's just one reading on that one. Any issues with any of those?
I don't have any issues with everything. I was just curious, obviously, we worked with MTAS. Has the comptroller's office seen these examples as of yet?
No, I did ask MTAS if the comptroller would give us any, that office would give us any feedback, and once I close it, they don't have a department that reviews those things. So,
Okay.
They refer to MTAS, basically. They say, talk to MTAS, get advice from MTAS. So,
I know
which we've
we
done.
were writing them for the first time on most of them anyway, but I was just curious.
Yeah, we get to be the policy makers on some of these, y'all. So I do think our model will end up being used by other cities. So at least we're able to help other cities out.
Thank you, Jess.
Okay, and I think that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay. Well, that was plenty. Thank you. Just joking. Okay, so last, I think we had the called workshop. Myself and Jessica met with property owner we were talking about the community center. So we met with Nick Bishop after you all had approved that we go forward to see if we could swap properties. And he said that he was willing to swap his 5 parcels of property for the building and the lot there behind the depot. Now, we did speak with MTAS, the attorney with MTAS, who advised that we could do a property swap, but we have to declare it as a surplus property and draft a written agreement saying this swap was in the public interest. So, MTAS did note that the value of our property goes with the appraisal from when we bought the property back 2 years ago from SUB, that is current for our property. Now, the property value for the 5 lots, let me go back. We bought it from the SUB, and that is the current value of that lot. And the exchange of the property should be equivalent to that value, the value of our property. Now, the value of the 5 lots, okay, is $293, which does not meet, I think ours was $750, okay? So, if we want to consider making the change or making the swap, we would need to do some documentation showing closer values. Of course, that goes off, that $293 is just off the tax roll, okay, that you get from the county, okay? Any questions on that? So, first, do we agree that we prefer the green space property for building a new building at the increased cost? Estimate that increased cost is going to be an estimated $450,000 for the redesign and the added construction. And secondly, are we willing to hire someone to appraise the market value on the Bishop property? Okay, so I'm going to open it for discussion. Does that make sense?
So you're saying we're gonna lose $400,000 worth of value, going from our building to those 5 pieces of land?
Not necessarily, but go ahead and explain that.
So, our appraisal is recent, and it was done by an appraiser, so it's $750,000. I don't know if it's really a real estate appraisal, but that is what MTAS said we should use as our value. When I looked just at the tax roll valuation, we're at $293 on his 5 lots. Now, I know there was some discussion in the last meeting about, well, we don't want to just swap for land anyway. It would be land plus he'd have to pony up cash. We kind of told him that in our meeting. That was not met with any kind of offer. So, you all may say right now that's dead in the water, that we're not going to swap unless he'll pony up cash. And if that's fine, that's fine. But what I told him I would come back and tell you, and what we agreed to say back to you all was, do we want to pay for an appraisal to see what his land would be valued out with an appraisal?
A better idea of what his property is worth.
Why would that be our responsibility?
And if you want us to go back and tell him, we're not willing to do it, but if you will do an appraisal, and if it comes up to close to $750,000 in value, then we'll talk. I can do that. I don't know that it will move forward if that's what we go back and say to him.
I have a question before we talk about that, though, would be the restrictions that he asked for on the 4 and 5 lot, I think, for that would be parking, that we would make that all parking, and that he would be able to use that parking. So, was that the whole lot of that whole use?
So the space behind the visitor center, including the paved strip that is technically owned by him, and it goes all the way back to the property that the Phillips own, which is the red building with the green roof that Saller Brothers Lumber used to have lumber stored in. So that is 3 lots. That is where the center would be built. That would be the building area. The 2 lots that would be used for parking are right beside the concrete pad of the blue building. So it's these 2 little like triangular squared lots that are up beside that. Those lots, we looked at the value today, and they're less than $10,000 each. They're smaller lots, those 2 right there on the side. We do need parking. We need to add parking. So that will be part of our addition if we do change the location of this, is that we need to have parking. He said he uses those currently for his employees to park on. I did make it very clear in that meeting we didn't want him parking tractor trailers there or transfer trucks there, but that if he wanted to, if his employees were gonna park there, it was gonna be a public parking lot for private passenger vehicles anyway. That's gonna be a public parking lot if we own it. So he said he had 8 to 10 employees that would need to be able to park somewhere. So that's how that ended up. He was only willing at first to discuss the 3 lots. And when we said, we basically told him we thought that'd be a no-go, that you all wouldn't even be interested in talking about it anymore with just the 3 lots, that it would have to be all 5 lots. He went home that evening and emailed back the mayor and told him he would consider all the 5 lots if we were just gonna use that for parking, so. And I think the first question we have to answer is, do we want this community center to be built on the green space instead of where we originally planned where the blue building is? Cause if that answer is yes, then we say, oh, okay, we need to go back to Nick with some kind of discussion piece. If that answer is no, then we just move forward with building it out like it's designed right now.
Okay, I have another question. So the 5 lots, especially the 3 lots that we plan on putting the center on, that still is in a floodplain, a floodway? Which one is it in?
Question, it's in the floodplain, not
Plain.
the floodway.
Not the
And so
floodway.
that means you will have to build up the land in order to build the building on it, right?
I do think we have to build it up 1 foot, right, Sam?
Yeah,
We have to-
I mean, it's,
just like we did the
give
depot.
or take, it's gotta come up.
It
It's
has
in
to
the-
come up.
Yeah.
If we, okay. And do we have any idea, like, is it gonna be like what Dollar General had to do and a whole like retaining wall and all that? Like, how involved is building up the land so it's even buildable to put this community center on the land?
Obviously, we don't have any core samples. We could get core samples. That's gonna be anywhere from 3,000 to 5,500 if we want to go to that depth. And I say that in that that's the only way to truly know the soil capacity of what's down there. Living here and just educated guesses, we're not going to have to do anything to the magnitude that Dollar General did based on that soil was basically much wetter and spongier than that would be. We would have some information from the core samples from the visitor center that we could look at, obviously close proximity, but it's not exact location. We could pull those and look at them. Typically what is done is we would more or less, if we need to raise it a foot, if we need to raise it 2 feet, we would bring in suitable soil and compact that appropriately.
Right.
That would be the easiest, quickest, fastest. Now, obviously, I'm making that statement without knowing exactly what that core sample is or is not. Did that help?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
So my thought on it is this. Had it not been for one little corner of that building that we bought being in a floodway, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. But now we're having a conversation of investing minimum $500,000 more into the same thing that we would have minus 1 foot of roof space on a basketball court that we already have had designed, we planned on moving forward with. And when we first started talking about the community center, and correct me if I'm wrong, we wanted a place for our elderly to be able to go walk. We wanted some meeting rooms that people could go to. We wanted Wi-Fi access. We wanted all different things which a community center needs to provide. But I don't know how we got to the point of we need to invest this much more just to move it to a completely different location. When we all, if it hadn't been for that one little corner, we would have probably already had it close to bid out. And we're to the point now where the grant money was moved, I guess after the meeting tomorrow anyway. So that floodway of the little corner there is not really a problem now. So, you know, not only with the money that it's going to cost extra for design and building construction, we're looking at possibly having to pay for an appraisal for somebody else's property to see if it's even worth trying to swap for, building them a parking lot, and also whatever we're going to lose in the land swap transaction, because we're going to lose some regardless if it just says his is worth $400,000 and he doesn't pony up money. I just don't know how we've got to this point when we already had that plan laid out, and it's very possible now to move forward with the community center the way that we had originally designed and counted on doing. I mean, I just think, I don't want to say a waste of money because, you know, newer is always better. But we went into this knowing that a remodel and alterations to the building that we bought for the purpose of a community center, I mean, that's my old country boy logic and opinion on the whole matter. And I don't see spending a lot of extra money when the way I understood the last meeting, it boils down to a 1 foot extra clearance on a basketball court, and we're not going to hold the Final Four. You know, we want junior pro and things like that that are going to enhance our city and give people another reason to come here, and that extra league would do just that. And what we have designed and planned to build, to me, would be very suitable for that. So there's my opinion on it.
I think everything you've said is obviously true, and I agree. I think with everything that we've been through with the grant, with the monies, I think all of this discussion was just part of what this board has always done so well over the year, is when anything comes up that is an issue, we try to take our due diligence and lay all the cards back on the table. One point of interest that I double checked today is the 19 feet that we were speaking of is closer to the haunches than what we thought last time. We do have 20 feet to the underside of the dead center after going and rechecking it today. We also did some additional review, and the crazy thing about the additional review is it is extremely harder to find than you would think, especially in today's Google search, because the range was 16 feet is minimum to play, 20 feet is preferred, high school is 25, and to hold a certified AAU is actually 30 feet. So with all of that range of information, with all of the pause and discussion based on where we're at, I think it truly does come down to, can we live with 20 feet at the haunches? And it would be 22 to 23 between the haunches of the main frame. is that sufficient for us to move forward and save the 450 and keep rolling as we intended? My biggest concern is probably somewhat comical to all the other stuff, but my main concern, if I had to lay my finger on one thing, is we have worked so hard to help the city grow in the manner in which it has, and we're coming to a break-even point in that we've got wonderful retail, we've got wonderful shops, we've got wonderful landscaping, we've got wonderful visitor center, and we've got an existing condition which none of us in this room, would have seen, but all of this growth backs up to 2 industrial sites. And those industrial sites are using those sites as they have zoning. My concern is if we swap and give the SUB building to an industrial site, they're going to use that site for the industrial uses feet away from one of our biggest jewels in town, which is our visitor center. That would be my concern. And if we keep the existing site, we're only going to enhance the backdrop of our visitor center, but then we still have that industrial land behind it. I would like for us to see if there's any way we could team with them, and once again, this is a hypothesis. Could we swap the old SUB, the electrical office, and the blue warehouse, and move some of that to that site? Is there any way to team that? I know it's across the road, but one of the things that would be my hopes and aspirations is for that area to be a little bit more organized. But once again, that's a hard discussion with personal property. So as far as, I think we can move forward and still use the space. It's just ultimately the hard decision is, would we ever even try to hold a AAU? Obviously we can't because of the existing height. Things of that nature is going to drive whether it stays or whether it goes.
I feel like we're between a rock and a hard place. Moving it to me, that I just can't even wrap my mind around. Like, that doesn't make any sense. But this passion to have these tournaments, that I can't wrap my head around that either if we only have 20 feet. So I feel like we're very much between a rock and a hard place, and I'm not sure what's a good direction to even go in.
I think what it comes down to is, once again, if it had to come to a vote, is that enough to move it and raise it, 5 feet, 10 feet, whatever that is? I think that would be the question on the table.
I couldn't vote to move it, and not me first. I couldn't do that.
I understand.
Well, are there any restrictions on our use of it because of a part of it being in the floodway? Is there anybody can tell us we can't do this? EPA, state of Tennessee?
Only if we use the grant money, right?
But there's nobody else that can tell us. Doesn't violate our own building code for us, the city, to be operating a facility in the floodway.
Not if we don't change the footprint into the floodway.
All right. So long as we stay west, we're all right.
Everything being altered to that building
Is out of it.
is out of the floodway.
All right. And we're not presented, I assume we don't have to worry about the flood plain because it's an existing facility.
Correct.
All right. And of course we know that from this experience, we will not be getting any CDBG money in the future for our community center because they won't allow it, right?
Right.
So for that corner, we're taking ourselves out of that for that purpose.
We've already purposed that.
But he's talking about, like, if we were to expand in the future, we could not
Oh,
apply
okay.
for a
I gotcha.
CDBG grant
Okay.
to amend anything on that building because of that one little
Right,
corner.
right.
Now, obviously, we get to keep the Connected Communities grant, that's a state grant, they don't have a problem with it being partially located in floodway, but you are absolutely right, we would be foregoing any future grant applications for CDBG.
Where that mattered. Or probably out of caution, any grant we wanted to apply for, we should say, hey, this corner's in a
Does
floodway.
that preclude it?
Because we wouldn't qualify to begin with. What about insurance? Us putting a facility in a
Believe it or not,
floodplain?
We actually thought to ask about insurance before we ever started this process. So that one we did already check mark the box off. You all may or may not know this, but PEP Partners actually provides flood insurance on all of our properties anyway, whether they're in the flood zone or not, which only a company like PEP Partners could do that, because a normal insurance company cannot do that. They can only write insurance in the floodway, and it has to be through the National Flood Insurance Program. But we already would have, right this second, we already have flood insurance coverage on that property, and it's already included in the premium that we're already paying.
So
the
they're-
insurance question is, we're okay on.
They're aware of its status.
Yeah. We emailed them, and we have it in writing that they, underwriting had already seen it, and they've approved that coverage.
And are there any, and Sam, I don't know if you'd know the answer to this or who, will there be any extra things we have to do if we're gonna use it in a floodplain? Any kind of barriers or
Not moving.
sluicing off
Not,
or,
not,
not that you know of?
not moving forward,
As
not
is.
using the CDBG.
Right, okay.
So, with the addition as is, they are in the floodplain, they are not in the floodway. We have verified that we can have insurance on the facility, even built out, and that is a check. The only restriction was obviously through the grant. I mean, not to say a third party will come out, but sitting here tonight answering your question, I don't know of anything.
Well, there's nothing design-wise or from your
No.
field that we wouldn't have to do
No.
extra
No.
because of where it is.
Correct.
Okay. Do we need a motion?
Well, this is not a called meeting. So if we were going to authorize hiring an appraiser, I wanted you all to give me that indication tonight so that we could bring a cost back to the August meeting. If that's not what we're doing, then really I think we're saying we're leaving it as it is and proceeding with that meeting. If you all want that to be a vote where we actually go on the record and vote about it, I can add that to the August agenda.
And what we've basically done, if I understand correctly, is we've flipped your design. Instead of being on the south end of the building, it'll now be on the north end of the building.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same layout.
When we started looking into this, and we got the survey back, I mean, we had done preliminary, when we were applying and thinking about moving forward, we had just done schematic, but we didn't have the survey. Once we got the survey and saw the line where it was at, that's when we took all the entry in the classes and, as you said, moved it from the south side to the north side.
Okay.
The Cubs are in the north side anyway, so that worked out good.
God.
Sorry, I had to go there.
So if we decide to proceed as we've already planned, how close are we to going out for bid and getting this thing rolling?
There's one, they've got to finish phase one, I believe. Well, no,
More.
sorry.
It's in the CDBG money, I mean.
My brain is
literally-
still stuck in all the
literally,
lists.
It's a matter of having the bid specs drafted
Yeah.
for the bid.
So, within a month, we could be ready. We had held up on a few things because of, we didn't know which way it was going.
Right.
But we could we could go out to bid before the end of this month.
Have we set a budget? Do we have a budget, like, amount? for-
There is a budget that was put together for the PAR, the preliminary report, and it has everything from building costs, design costs, attorneys, grant, that's all in there. So what we would need to do is go and pull all the grant monies and administration out. But we can have that number by Monday. I just can't remember what that breakdown is.
And essentially, we're kind of going with, when we get the bids in, we will know what we need to borrow. And we will be borrowing for this project. It's a big enough project that we will not be able to afford to just take this out.
But we will be still using like the 600 and some odd, that money that's still available, that people still
Yes,
using that
that
money towards
connected
the.
communities
Yeah.
grant, yeah.
The good thing about that is, well, hopefully the good thing about it is after tomorrow's meeting, if we take this million and move it to the pool, then obviously that will cancel out what we need for that project. So with the two combined, it's still going to reduce the costs that we'll have to borrow for the projects.
So put that on the agenda for Monday.
I've got another
About that,
question,
please.
if I may. Since we're talking about the property, did Nick offer or express any idea or desire to sell the property that's not being used at the moment?
I don't think so. I think this was only if he
Yeah.
could solve the problem that he needed to solve of having more storage available. I did also
Immediately.
mention to him that after the fair is over with, we're not using that blue building that's on the backside of A Street. So if he's interested in utilizing that somehow, that would be an available property for him. If what he's needing is storage, that would be a good place for that. So we have tried to, reach out to him and just say, as a business owner, we're interested in you succeeding, and we want to give you the things that you're gonna need to be able to succeed, so. Obviously, this is gonna lead to another conversation with Nick, but we did also talk about the proper closing of High School Street and actually deeding them our half so that we could get back the paved area that's behind the depot too. So that's still another conversation to be had too. Once we know that this door is closed and we're not doing this property swap, that leads to another conversation with him to talk about.
Would there be enough opening to discuss purchasing that property and then, swapping the SUB old blue warehouse?
I mean, that's what we talked, we did kind of mention that already, so I mean, it's definitely something that we'll, reach out to him and see. what
That's
his
something
thoughts
to probably
and
get
issues.
closer in value
Yes,
between the properties.
yes.
I mean, just for the sake of where I think we're going as a city, having that property and being able to enhance where we're at right now, I think I would be very interested in seeing how close we could get.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all.
It'd be nice to have that green space downtown.
Yes.
So we can
Go
definitely
ahead.
follow back up with him and
Absolutely.
make an appointment and at least discuss those options.
Absolutely. All right. Any more discussion on community center? Okay. So on our upcoming meeting for Monday, we have the minutes distributions and a public hearing for the final budget amendment. We also have several appointments do the commissioners have any nominations for any of those vacancies?
I do.
They're ready to share? Okay.
I have Nick Farrell and Paul Dacus.
For which?
Parks and
Parks and Rec. Paul?
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I need to confirm with John a couple of names that we've got, but obviously we'll have them by Monday.
I am replacing Nancy Baker on the Planning Commission with Richard Bettis. Nancy indicated earlier to me when I first took office that she was ready to step down, and if I could find a suitable replacement for her, I feel like I have found that suitable replacement in Richard Bettis. So he has agreed to take that on. So get that going. We'll also have the ordinances and that we discussed on the policies and updates for the internal control manual. We also have a new rezoning ordinance that was recommended to us by the planning commission. This would rezone the property behind Volunteer Federal, on Old Athens Pike from an R2 to a C2. And John will be here to review that request. Okay, so now, if there's not any other comments, concerns, we'll now adjourn this workshop. We're gonna take 5-10 minutes, grab something to eat, use the bathroom, whatever you need to do, and then we'll start our strategic planning session. Okay, so we're adjourned.
Hey, Sonia.